Well, good afternoon, everyone. Later this afternoon, we'll confirm our 31st circuit judge. We're dealing with other personnel matters this week, and we'll continue to do that next week. And obviously, most priority will be given to circuit judges, but there are other important administration positions we tend to move on. For example, the administrator of EPA. I've been reading with some amusement that our friends on the other side seem to be reluctant to vote on the Green New Deal. The latest I read was that people were contemplating voting present. The only question I would ask is, if this is such a popular thing to do and so necessary, why would one want to dodge the vote? This is an opportunity to go on record about measures that ought to be taken by the United States on a unilateral basis to address the problem. And it's a debate we'll have in all likelihood sometime before the August break. With that, let me turn to Senator Thune.
Well, thank you, Leader. It's pretty clear that our friends on the other side keep veering farther and farther to the left, tripping over themselves to see who can get there the fastest. And we've seen several manifestations of this already. The $32 trillion government-run health care program that many of their 2020 presidential candidates have embraced is something that would do away with private insurance for literally tens and tens of millions of Americans. The Green New Deal, as the leader mentioned, is a new date out on that, $93 trillion price tag over a 10-year period, or about $600,000 per family in this country. They want to do away with all the tax relief that has gotten the economy growing at a faster rate and has gotten wages up to record levels. And of course, yesterday we had a vote on whether or not a living, breathing baby born in an abortion clinic ought to be treated the same as a living, breathing baby born in a delivery room. And the Democrats here in the United States Senate said no. So it is an extreme, far-left position that the Democrat Party here in Washington, D.C., their candidates for the 2020 presidential nomination, and many others have adopted. And we're going to continue to work on common sense solutions that are good for the American people, that will continue to grow the economy, create better paying jobs and higher wages, and make it clear that we are on the side of working families in this country.
Well, the Green New Deal drives a stake into the heart of our strong and healthy and growing economy. It's $93 trillion. That's with a T, trillion. That's about 90% of the net worth of every family in the United States. It's clearly unaffordable. It's clearly unworkable. And at the heart of it, it's to try to replace all of the energy sources we have with renewable energy, in spite of the fact that 3 out of 5 homes in this country are powered by oil, gas, coal, and there continues to be a gap in energy between the reliable energy that we need and the renewable energy. And so when you take a look at how much of our energy for electricity in the United States comes from wind and solar, it's only 8%. If we were to get rid of oil and coal and gas, that would be a gift to Vladimir Putin, who knows that energy is called the master resource for a reason, and he uses it as a geopolitical weapon. And in terms of trying to accomplish things with global climate change and emissions, only 13% of world emissions come from the United States. 33% right now come from China and India. And emissions in the United States have actually been going down over the past 10 years because of the innovation that we've used in the United States. Innovation is the answer. We passed bipartisan legislation aiming at new technology and new age nuclear power plants aimed at carbon capture and sequestration. We have a hearing tomorrow in the Environment and Public Works Committee that I chair, called the Use It Act, looking at ways to use carbon dioxide and capture it and sequester it and use it productively. So the solution to climate change is not government regulation, it's innovation, and that's the way we ought to be heading.
The Vice President today was just back from Colombia and wanted to talk some and did talk some about Venezuela and what's happening there. A critically important moment, I think, for Venezuela. We see the South American countries beginning to stand up with the person we're recognizing as the president of the country. The presidents of Colombia and Chile and the Paraguay with him last week, the Lima group supporting the Venezuela democracy this week. The Vice President talked about Maduro dancing on the stage while his troops are firing on Venezuelans who are just trying to get basic food necessities. This is really a critical moment. We don't want to let what happened in Syria happen in Venezuela, where the moment was missed, where people trying to get freedom were allowed to be repressed, and the world community didn't stand up. President Trump, the first really to step up and recognize a government that can return democracy to Venezuela. South American presidents and countries all over the world standing with them. This is an important moment. We don't want to miss it. I'll also mention that the Vice President particularly talked about the leadership of Senator Rubio and Senator Scott from Florida about what they're doing to encourage and assist and aid the potential for freedom in Venezuela.
Born alive babies, folks. Last night we had a vote on protecting the life of a baby that was born, and our Senate colleagues across the aisle rejected the notion that a baby should be protected, regardless of the circumstance that brought that baby into being. So I just want to express my disappointment today, a low point truly for the United States of America. You know, it is a common belief that we should protect the most vulnerable amongst us. And I don't know of anyone in this room that would argue a baby that is born alive, even from a botched abortion, is not a human being and is not the most vulnerable amongst us. So severe disappointment, folks, in the vote from last night, but I want to thank Senator Ben Sasse for bringing the bill forward. It was an important vote for us. We will continue fighting. I'd like to move on to China and our trade negotiations as well. I am encouraged when I hear that there has been significant progress coming through those negotiations. In my home state of Iowa, trade is very, very important, and 1 in 5 jobs in my home state of Iowa is tied directly to international trade. So we want to continue supporting the president, and I hear from my farmers that they believe in what he is doing. They are glad that someone is finally standing up against China and their unfair trade practices. But what I've heard from farmers with the Iowa Soybean Association is that it does keep them up at night. They do want to see additional progress with these trade talks. We would like to see them done soon, but we do want a good deal. So with those challenges, we do have opportunity. And so instead of seeing markets go away for our farmers, we would like to see expanded access, and we hope that the administration is able to achieve that goal. So thank you.
Days ago, the governor of Virginia indicated on a radio interview that he thought it was acceptable to terminate the life of a child after that child had been born. People were horrified in my home state of Indiana and across this country, and Congress had an opportunity to act yesterday through the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. All this act simply said was that a child that is born alive deserves a chance at life. What could be more fundamental than that? We were standing up as a body, as the United States Senate. We're standing up on behalf of those who don't have a voice against infanticide. We were able to cast our votes and indicate where we stood on this issue, and unfortunately, so many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle did not choose life. I will continue to defend, as so many of my colleagues will, the lives, rights, and property of all human beings. Thank you.
Yeah.
Two-part question here. What's the timing you see on when the House moves the resolution of disapproval over, put this into the Senate? I know what the statute says.
On the emergency designation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the first question. And then what about the latitude that you would give senators on your side of the aisle to vote for it?
Well, first with regard to the emergency designation, we assume the House is going to act on that today. It'll come over here. It's privileged. It will come up. It can rest as long as 15 days, but I think it'd be reasonable to assume that vote will occur before the next Senate recess period. We had a very fulsome discussion of this issue in the conference at noon today with the Vice President and with a lawyer from the Justice Department. It dominated the entire discussions about the legality, the appropriateness, and all the rest. I think I can safely say my members were extremely interested in the subject, and I personally couldn't handicap the outcome at this point, but we will certainly be voting on it. One thing that's not in debate in our conference is we really do think there's a crisis at the border. There doesn't seem to be any difference of opinion about that. There are different points of view about how to address that, and all of that will be dealt with publicly on the floor before we have the vote.
Mr. Leader,
Yeah.
do you personally believe that the President's emergency declaration is legal?
Well, that's part of what we were discussing today.
What do you think?
Well, we're in the process of weighing that. The lawyer was there to make his arguments. There were some counter arguments. I haven't reached a total conclusion about, I wouldn't go to me for a simple will. I did go to law school, but we had some real serious lawyers in there discussing that very issue. What is not in doubt is that there really is a crisis at the border, and it seems to me our colleagues on the other side are in denial about that, and you can't blame the president for trying to use whatever tool he thinks he has to address it. But as of the moment, I couldn't handicap the outcome of the vote. All I can tell you is it certainly will occur. We had a robust, vigorous discussion about all of that in our conference.
Senator McConnell, what is Senator McConnell?
Yeah.
Have you and Speaker Pelosi spoken directly to senators all about the bipartisan agenda? Is there anything bipartisan you think that is needed that can pass legislatively?
Yeah, well, we haven't yet, but I wouldn't say that that there won't be some things that we can agree on. For example, we were actually thrilled that the Democratic House is taking up the lands package that we just sent over, I think with 92 votes in the affirmative, basically crafted by the Republican chairman of the Energy Committee in the Senate. The House is going to take it up on the suspension calendar and presumably send it straight to the president. I mean, that's a good example that there are things we can find that we have agreement on, and I'm optimistic there'll be more of that in the course of the Congress. Thanks.